I never thought I'd be the kind of man who checks his wife's phone. For 15 years, Sarah and I had built something I believed was unshakable. We met in college, married young, weathered the storms of building careers and raising two kids. I was a corporate attorney. She was a marketing executive. We had the house in the suburbs, the vacation photos, the anniversary dinners. We had trust, or so I thought. It was a Thursday night when everything changed. Sarah had fallen asleep on the couch, her phone buzzing repeatedly on the coffee table. Normally, I wouldn't have looked. But something about the frequency, the late hour, the way her phone lit up again and again, made me reach for it. The preview on the screen showed a message from Chris Work. The content made my blood run cold. Can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again? My hands moved automatically, unlocking her phone with the passcode I'd always known, the one she'd never changed because we had no secrets, or so I'd believed. What I found in those messages wasn't just an affair. It was a complete parallel life. 6 months of hotel rooms, stolen afternoons, elaborate lies about late meetings and business trips, photos I couldn't unsee, plans for a future that didn't include me. And worst of all, conversations where she mocked our marriage, calling me comfortable and predictable, laughing about how easy it was to deceive me. I sat there for 3 hours, reading every message, looking at every photo, documenting everything with methodical precision. I took screenshots, backed them up to a secure cloud account, then placed her phone exactly where I'd found it. When Sarah woke up around 2 a.m., stretching and mumbling about going to bed, I smiled and said goodnight. She kissed my cheek, completely unaware that I knew everything, that I was already planning my exit. Some men would have exploded right then, screaming, throwing things, demanding explanations, but I've spent my career in high-stakes litigation. I know that emotion is the enemy of strategy. The best revenge isn't hot, it's cold, it's calculated, it's devastating in its precision. Over the next 2 weeks, I moved like a ghost through my own life. I acted completely normal. I kissed her goodbye in the mornings, asked about her day, made love to her when she initiated it, all while quietly dismantling everything we'd built together. First, I consulted with 3 different divorce attorneys, choosing the most aggressive one. We built an airtight case. The evidence of her affair would destroy any claim for alimony in our state. I documented every shared asset, every account, every investment. I moved half of our liquid assets to a separate account, perfectly legal since they were marital funds, and I had every right to protect my interests. I changed my direct deposit to go to this new account. I made copies of every important document, every deed, every insurance policy. I secured a new apartment, signing a lease and furnishing it completely. I arranged for my mail to be forwarded. I consulted with a child psychologist about how to minimize the trauma of divorce on our kids, ages 12 and 9. I even started therapy myself, not to save the marriage, but to process what was about to happen. My therapist asked me once if I wanted to try counseling with Sarah to see if the marriage could be saved. I looked at her and said, "Would you trust someone who spent 6 months elaborately deceiving you, who laughed about how easy you were to fool?" She didn't push the issue again. The night I chose to leave was carefully selected. Sarah had told me she was going to a regional marketing conference for 3 days. According to her messages with Chris, she was actually going to a resort in Napa with him. I told her I'd take the kids to my parents' house for the weekend so she wouldn't have to worry about arrangements. She hugged me, told me I was the best husband, and left with her suitcase full of lingerie I'd never seen her wear for me. Once she was gone, I moved with military efficiency. The moving truck I'd prearranged arrived within an hour. I took half of everything, just as I was legally entitled to do. Half the furniture, half the art, half the kitchen supplies. I left the house looking strangely empty, but not stripped. I took my personal items, my clothes, my books, anything that mattered to me. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter with the divorce papers and a single note. "I know everything. My attorney will be in touch." Then, I drove my kids to what they thought was my parents' house, but was actually my new apartment. I'd prepared them as much as I could, explaining that sometimes adults grow apart, that Mom and I were going to live separately for a while. They cried. I held them. It was the hardest moment of the entire process, seeing their pain and knowing I was partially responsible for it, even though I wasn't the one who'd had the affair. But I also knew that staying in a broken marriage, teaching them that betrayal was acceptable, would damage them more in the long run. Sarah called me 37 times that weekend. I didn't answer. She sent texts that evolved from confused to angry to panicked to pleading. I didn't respond. Let her sit with the uncertainty, the fear, the realization that actions have consequences. On Monday morning, she was served with divorce papers at her office. My attorney had advised doing it publicly, making it clear this wasn't something she could smooth over or control the narrative around. She showed up at my new apartment that night. I'd been expecting it. I opened the door but didn't let her in. "How could you do this?" she screamed, tears streaming down her face. "How could you just leave without talking to me? Without giving us a chance to work through this?" I looked at her with complete calm. "You had 6 months to talk to me, Sarah. 6 months where you chose to lie instead. You don't get to demand communication now." "It was a mistake," she sobbed. I was confused. "I'll end it. We can go to counseling. Please. Think about the kids." "I am thinking about the kids," I replied evenly. "I'm thinking about what kind of example we set for them. Do we teach them that betrayal is acceptable? That lying for 6 months is just a mistake? Or do we teach them that actions have consequences?" "You're being cruel," she accused. "No, I'm being clear. You destroyed our marriage. I'm simply responding to that reality." She tried a different approach, reaching for my. I pulled my hand away. If it didn't mean anything, why risk everything for it? Why mock me in your messages to him? Why plan a future that didn't include me? She didn't have an answer for that. "I want to see my kids," she finally said. "They're with my parents right now, per the temporary custody arrangement. You'll have them next weekend. My attorney sent you the schedule." Her face crumpled. "You've really thought of everything, haven't you?" "Yes. While you were planning your romantic getaway, I was planning my exit. We both kept secrets, Sarah. Mine were just more productive." The divorce took 8 months. Sarah fought initially, trying to claim she deserved alimony, trying to get primary custody, trying to keep the house. But the evidence was overwhelming. Her affair, her mockery of our marriage, her elaborate deceptions. The judge was not sympathetic. We split assets 50-50. She had to buy out my half of the house, and we got joint custody with a clear schedule. No alimony. She had to pay her own attorney fees because she'd been the one to contest reasonable terms. During those 8 months, I discovered things about Sarah I'd never known. How she'd had a brief affair 5 years ago that I'd never discovered. How she'd been hiding money in a separate account. How she'd lied about numerous small things throughout our marriage. Each revelation made me more certain I'd made the right choice. Chris, predictably, disappeared from her life within weeks of my filing for divorce. Turns out he was only interested when it was exciting and forbidden. Once it became real with real consequences, he vanished. Sarah tried to contact me about it once, crying about how he'd used her. I felt nothing. The kids struggled initially. They were angry with both of us, confused about why their family had fallen apart. I put them in therapy, spent every moment of my custody time focused on them, never badmouthed their mother despite having every reason to. Slowly, they adjusted. They came to understand, in age-appropriate ways, that sometimes adults make choices that hurt the people they love, that forgiveness is possible, but trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to fully repair. A year after I filed for divorce, I ran into Sarah at our daughter's school play. She looked tired, older than her 40 years. She asked if we could talk. I agreed, curious about what she wanted. We sat in my car in the school parking lot, an echo of countless conversations we'd had in the early days of our relationship. "I've been in therapy," she began, "trying to understand why I did what I did, why I risked everything." "And what did you discover?" I asked, my tone neutral. "That I was selfish, that I was chasing some fantasy of who I could be instead of appreciating what I had, that I took you for granted." She looked at me with genuine remorse. "I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was bored." I nodded. "Thank you for being honest." "Is there any chance, any possibility that we could try again?" she asked quietly. "No," I replied without hesitation. "Why not?" "I've changed. I've grown. I understand what I lost." Because I've changed too, Sarah. I've realized that I spent 15 years accommodating someone who didn't respect me. I built my entire life around making you happy, and you repaid that by mocking me to your lover. I'm not that man anymore. So you'll never forgive me? I've forgiven you, I said truthfully. Holding on to anger would only hurt me, but forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It means I've made peace with what happened and moved forward. She cried then, quietly, understanding that this was truly the end. I hope you find happiness, she finally said. I hope you find someone who deserves you. I hope you find yourself, I replied. Figure out who you are and what you actually want, instead of just chasing excitement. We sat in silence for a moment before she got out of the car. As I watched her walk away, I felt no triumph, no satisfaction, just a quiet certainty that I'd made the right choice. 2 years after the divorce was finalized, my life looks nothing like it did before. I made partner at my firm. My kids are thriving in their new routine, splitting time between two homes that are both filled with love, even if they're no longer together. I've dated casually, nothing serious, taking time to rediscover who I am outside of marriage. I've traveled to places Sarah never wanted to go. I've pursued hobbies I'd abandoned to spend time with her. I've built friendships that aren't couple-based. Last month, I met someone at a colleague's dinner party. Her name is Jennifer. She's a professor of literature, and she has a directness I find refreshing. When she asked about my divorce, I told her the truth. My ex-wife had an affair. I found out, documented everything, and left while she was away with her lover. I filed for divorce without warning. Sounds calculated, she observed. It was. I'm not proud of the coldness, but I'm not ashamed either. She betrayed me for 6 months. I protected myself and my children. Jennifer nodded thoughtfully. I respect that you didn't try to make yourself the hero of the story. You did what you needed to do. We've been seeing each other for 3 months now. It's different from what I had with Sarah. There's no assumption of forever, no rushing toward commitment. Just two people, both scarred by past relationships, choosing to be honest and present with each other. I told her early on that I don't know if I'll ever fully trust again. She said that was fair, that trust should be earned, not assumed. My kids met Jennifer last week. It was casual, a group outing to a museum with several other friends. They seemed to like her, or at least didn't object to her presence. Afterward, my daughter asked if Jennifer was my girlfriend. Maybe, I told her honestly. We're figuring that out. Is she going to be like Mom was with Dad, Chris? My daughter asked, using the name they'd learned during the divorce. The question gutted me. No, sweetheart, if Jennifer and I decide to be together, it'll be because we choose each other openly. No secrets, no lies. Good, she said simply, because secrets hurt. From the mouths of children comes the clearest truth. Sarah is remarried now to someone she met in her therapy group, someone with his own history of infidelity and his own baggage. Part of me wonders if it'll work, if two people broken in the same way can heal each other. Mostly, I don't think about it. People ask me sometimes if I regret how I handled it, if I wish I'd given her a chance to explain, to apologize, to fight for our marriage. I tell them no, not because I'm heartless, but because I understand something now that I didn't then. Some betrayals are too fundamental to overcome. Sarah didn't just cheat on me physically. She mocked our entire relationship, laughed about deceiving me, planned a future that erased me. That's not a mistake or a moment of weakness. That's a choice, made repeatedly over months. Could we have gone to counseling? Sure. Could we have tried to rebuild? Perhaps. But I would have spent the rest of my life wondering when the next betrayal would come, checking her phone, doubting her words, becoming someone I didn't want to be. The silent revenge I took, the calculated exit, wasn't about hurting her. It was about protecting myself, about refusing to be a victim, to beg for scraps of loyalty from someone who'd already shown me exactly who they were. Sometimes late at night, I think about that Thursday when I first saw the messages, about how my entire life changed in a moment, about how the man I was, the one who trusted completely, died that night. A different man was born, one who's more careful, more guarded, less naive. I mourn the loss of that innocent trust, even as I appreciate the strength that replaced it. Sarah took something from me that night, something I'll never fully get back. But in taking it, she also freed me from a life built on lies. I've learned that love without respect is worthless, that trust once shattered leaves scars even when forgiven, that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away with your dignity intact. My kids are learning these lessons too, watching how I've rebuilt my life. They see that you can survive betrayal, that you can choose yourself even when it hurts, that happiness isn't dependent on any one person. As I sit here now in my apartment that became a home with my children asleep in their rooms and the possibility of a future with Jennifer stretching before me, I feel something I didn't expect: peace. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of self respect. I didn't get the revenge of seeing Sarah suffer, though I heard she struggled. I didn't get the satisfaction of her begging me to return, though she tried. What I got was something better. I got myself back. The man I'd lost somewhere in 15 years of marriage. The man who knew his worth and refused to accept less than he deserved. They call it silent revenge, this calculated exit I made. But it wasn't really about revenge at all. It was about survival, about refusing to let someone else's choices define my future, about teaching my children that they deserve relationships built on honesty, even if that means being alone. Sarah made her choice when she sent that first message to Chris, when she laughed about deceiving me, when she chose excitement over integrity. I made mine when I read those messages, documented the evidence, and planned my exit. Her choice destroyed a marriage. Mine saved a life, my life. And in the end, that's the only revenge that truly matters. Not making someone else suffer, but refusing to suffer yourself. Not destroying them, but rebuilding yourself. Not winning the battle, but choosing not to fight at all. Because the truest victory is walking away with your self-respect intact, knowing you'll never again settle for someone who doesn't value what you bring. That's the lesson I'll carry forward. That's what I'll teach my children. That's the gift Sarah's betrayal ultimately gave me, though she'll never understand it. The freedom to choose myself, to demand authenticity, to build a life on solid ground rather than the shifting sands of someone else's lies.